All right, folks, welcome to the session. I have been asked to start and end on time, so I'll do that. I hope that you can all hear me okay. Forgive me, I am slightly hoarse after a fairly active evening last night celebrating the England win. So welcome to the session. My name's Olly Harrison. I look after our sales and development team here at Sandler. We're Sandler are a global business, about 250 offices worldwide, and fortunately ours is happily based in Woodbury, just outside of Exeter. So I've got 20 minutes to talk through developing a high-performance sales culture. And let me start by setting that up by just reflecting on the work that Novak Djokovic undertakes. So Novak Djokovic, as you'll know, world-class tennis player, but it wasn't always that way. In 2004, Novak was sat outside of the top 100 in the world, earning by international sports standard relatively little money. The crucial things to focus on, though, here are the matches that he was winning and specifically the points he was winning. So he was winning about 49% of his matches and was winning 49% of his points. We then fast forward to the 06 to 010 period, where things had changed markedly. So he'd gone from being outside the top 100 to being number 3 in the world. Prize money was now starting to really move in the right direction. Was winning 79, almost 80% of his matches, but the key was that he was achieving that off a relatively marginal gain in his points won, in that he was really only winning an additional 3% of his points. And then if we fast forward to 2011 to 2016. The same story is true. Now number 1 in the world, dominating world tennis, earning outrageous sums of money, winning 90% of his matches, but again doing that off the back of a relatively marginal improvement in the points won. And for us at Sandler, that's really the lesson that can be applied to selling, which is that selling is a game of marginal gains. Small improvements in selling, small improvements in your sales process lead to substantial improvements in performance. So that will be the story that I'd like to share and talk through today. So in Sandler, we think that selling success is really built up of these 3 core principles. You've got behavior, the stuff you do. Thank you, Joe. I've just got your chat there. Behavior being the stuff you do. Attitude being the approach that you take to it, your mindset when you're out there prospecting, selling, managing clients. And second and finally, technique. Technique being the chops that you bring to the game, the skills that you're executing out there, or your teams are executing out there in the world. Welcome, folks. For those of you just joining us, I understand that Anders was giving a great talk and overran just slightly. So let me welcome you to the session. We've really just started here. So great to have you join us. Let me just, for those folks that have just joined, let me please welcome you. My name is Olly Harrison. I look after sales training here at Sandler Southwest. Sandler is a training and consulting business. We're fairly large. We've got a couple of 100 offices around the world. Happily, ours is based in Woodbury, just outside of Exeter in the southwest of England. Hi, James. Thanks for the shout out in the chat. So just recapping where we've got to, we're really talking about success in selling, but frankly in anything, being about fine margins and focusing on these 3 areas of success. That being behavior, the things you do, attitude, the way you view the world, and technique, the chops and the skills that you bring to the game. So what I want to do is just spend our 15 minutes together just looking at each of these in a little bit of detail. I do have an invitation for you at the end of today's session if you'd like to come to a slightly longer session, but I'll get to that at the end. So firstly, when it comes to behavior, In Sandler, we like to break behavior down, selling behavior down into these three key areas: goals, plan, and action. So firstly, reflecting on whether you're a business leader or whether you're responsible for selling in the business that you work for, have you got goals? And particularly when it comes to selling, what are your written down goals for this quarter? Have you got them written down? Do you know what you're shooting for? It's amazing the number of businesses that we come across that really haven't got that. It's a little bit ad hoc when it comes to goal planning. Secondly, plan. Have you built a plan of action to deliver against your sales goals? When it comes to developing a world-class sales culture, or frankly, a world-class anything, if you're a world-class athlete, you've got a plan, right? Novak Djokovic, Harry Kane, whoever it might be, Serena Williams, they don't kind of just get out of bed in the morning and think, I wonder what's going to happen today. They've got some goals, they've got some clearly defined motivation goals, and they've got a plan of action to hit them. So if you've got a plan, are you tracking performance against that plan? Are you tracking week in, week out, maybe even day in, day out? Are you tracking performance against that plan, and then are you fine-tuning it where necessary? And then finally, action. Do you find that you get to the end of the week and you discover that you didn't manage to get around to all of the most important things from a selling perspective you needed to do this week? Or do you find that you're a behavior machine and you're executing against the plan consistently? So my favorite quote when it comes to planning was from this man, Mr. Warren Buffett, who said, "An idiot with a plan beats a genius without one." And I sadly have never been blessed with genius. So when it comes to my own selling, I've always needed a pretty robust plan. And in Sandler, we advise our clients to ensure that whether it's a quarterly or an annual plan, when it comes to your selling activity, you really keep it pretty simple, and you've got 4 elements to your planning. First one is, as I've mentioned, your goals. What are your sales goals for this week? Thank you, Jenna. It's one of my favorite quotes. But what are your sales goals for this quarter? And have you written them down? And if you're a leader, have you built those goals with the team? Have you shared it with the team? And if I asked your team, could they tell me what their sales goals and your sales goals were for this quarter? If you're a startup or you're running your own business, have you written down your sales goals? Do you know what they are? Secondly, indicators, right? Indicators are the things that you need to measure to make sure you're on track. And in Sandler, we talk about 2 types of indicators when it comes to sales. Firstly, are those lagging indicators. And sadly, they're the things that most businesses measure. Lagging indicators are the sales revenue and the profit that you're bringing in. But the problem with lagging indicators is that you find out too late whether or not you've achieved them. And the second problem with them is you can't control them. Right? Another example of a lagging indicator would be if I want to lose weight, my lagging indicator would be how many pounds I'm losing each month. And we advise our clients that a better indicator to measure are your leading indicators. And your leading indicators are those behaviors that you need to be executing consistently in order to make sure you're going to hit your lagging indicators. If I want to lose weight, I probably shouldn't bother measuring my weight too often. Rather, I should check in on my diet, my exercise, my sleep. Same in selling. When it comes to selling, the key leading indicators or the key behaviors that we should be measuring typically are not these revenue that we're bringing in. It's the things that we're doing, the things that we can control to bring that revenue in. So that's our indicators. Then thirdly, weekly behaviors. Have you planned with your team, or if you're working for yourself, the weekly behaviors that you need to be doing consistently each week? How much of each do you need to be doing, and how often? And again, we find with high performance sales teams, in the same way that we do with high performance athletes, true high performers, they've got a plan and they're disciplined enough to diarize those most important behaviors and put it into their weekly plan. And finally, a big one, accountability. Right? If anyone's got kids, right, a great way of getting accountability is tell your kids that if you hit your weekly behavior plan or your quarterly behavior plan, you take them to Disneyland. I've never had a better accountability partner than my nephew, right? Because I promise he likes guitar. I promised him a guitar if I hit my quarterly plan. He checks in with me every week. You know, how are we going against the plan? Olly. So whether it's a family member or a colleague, or frankly, just somebody in your network, how are you holding yourself accountable to make sure you're doing the behaviors, or your teams are doing the behaviors? So when it comes to these indicators, our second goals, then indicators, then behaviors and accountability. Top 5 KPIs in sales, whether it's you or your teams. Firstly, how many number of suspects, those people that may want to do business with you, are you identifying at the start of each week? Secondly, how many face-to-face appointments are you booking in each week? How many active qualified proposals are going out the door each week? How many close the sale meetings? Closing the sale meetings are you having each week? And finally, a really important one, how many hours of prospecting are you or your team undertaking and dedicating to filling that pipeline up each week? So for us and Sandler, those are the top 5 indicators for developing a really high-class, world-class sales culture. Then behaviors. When it comes to your top sales behaviors, how much lead generation are you and your teams doing? How good are you at building relationships? Qualification, number one, thing that most teams we find struggle with, really understanding the compelling reason that your prospects may want to do some business with you. Particularly important in early stage tech startups where maybe your technology is less well established, and therefore really understanding the pains, the business issues that people are dealing with is crucial. Closing opportunities, of course. How strong are you and your teams at really closing with control and precision? Then moving through to servicing customers. You've worked hard to bring on and onboard those new customers. How well are you servicing them, looking after them, getting referrals, getting introductions? Account management, of course, looking to sustain and grow the account. Territory development, expanding your reach across the territory. Number 8 is what we call building that cookbook, which is really those behaviors that I've just spoken about, defining those behaviors and getting them into a weekly cookbook that you're tracking. Number 9, sales education. Really is something that doesn't happen a great deal. Curious to say, I know from a training business, but it's amazing the minority of businesses that really invest in continuous education for their teams. And then finally, of course, defining and sticking to your process. So for us here at Sandler, those are the top 10 behaviors. And I'd invite you just to reflect on those outside of the session and really think whether there are 2 or 3 areas that you'd benefit from building on. The 3 that we generally find: lead generation typically can be tricky. Proactive lead generation can be tricky for a lot of businesses. As I mentioned, number 3 is often a challenge as well, really effectively qualifying opportunities. And often number 4, closing with control and precision, so you're managing your pipeline and, importantly, your cash flow effectively. And the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to behavior is your strategic account planning. For those of you that have got a good customer base already, but are looking to grow that customer base, strategic account planning is critical. And really that comes down to segmenting your accounts into one of these 4 quadrants. Top right, you've got attain. Right? Those on-profile businesses that represent a great opportunity for you to work with. What are the names? Who should you be speaking to in those businesses? What are the behaviors you need to be doing consistently to get in front of them and engage them? Expand accounts to those accounts that you're already doing some business with, right? But you haven't maxed out the opportunity. You're not doing everything that you could be with them. So from an account development perspective, which are your top 5 or 10 expand accounts? What should you be doing with them? Who do you need to be speaking to in those accounts to look to expand the business you do in those accounts? Keep at the top. Keep are those accounts where you've already maxed out the opportunity. You've got a great relationship with them. There's not very much opportunity for growth within the account, but you want to maintain that relationship and get some introductions to other businesses that they know. And then finally, recapture. If you've been in business for a while, it's likely you may no longer work with some of the people you're used to. So is there a group of businesses, again, that you could reflect on that it makes sense for you to re-engage? Maybe something's changed in their business, something's changed in yours. That means it makes sense to have a conversation with them. And again, we find with most of our clients that if you sit down and you start thinking in that care planning way, what are the names of the top 5 or 10 accounts in each of those quadrants? Who should I be speaking to specifically in each? What's my plan for engaging them? Then it just really helps build that controlled pipeline of sales opportunities. Okay, I've got 5 minutes left to go through the other elements. So let me just whiz through this. Another little quote. I'm quite keen on quotes. When it comes to behavior, Arnie said, great philosopher Arnie, right? That there are no shortcuts. Everything is reps, reps, reps. And we see that in world-class sales teams. Oh, I've got 7 minutes. Thank you, Laura. We see that in world-class sales teams. You know, when you are managing yourself or your teams, what are you doing to help your teams behave consistently? What are you doing to make sure that they know what they should be doing week in, week out? You're holding them accountable for that, not in a micromanaging way, but in a performance enhancing way to help them achieve their own goals, right? Their own professional and personal goals. So consistency when it comes to prospecting and selling is key. Okay, so attitude. If we've looked at behavior, you know, goals, plan, and action, let's have a little think about attitude. My favorite little piece on YouTube about attitude is from this man, James Cracknell. I don't know, please put in chat if you have seen it. If you haven't, please take a look at the James Cracknell doing the Marathon des Sables. I think it's still on YouTube. It's 45 minutes. I think it's called The Hardest Race on Earth, something like that. What we know in Sandler is when it comes to attitude can really be broken down into two core elements of the way that you see yourself in the world. You've got your identity and you've got your role. Your identity is the way that you see yourself, unencumbered by any roles. And your R side, your role side, is the way that you see yourself performing in your different roles as a salesperson, a business owner, an entrepreneur, a father, a mother, a footballer, whatever it might be. And what psychology tells us is we can't outperform our R side by our I side. We will never outperform over the long term our I side by our I side. We will always perform consistently in our roles in alignment with the way we see ourselves on our I side. And James Cracknell is a great example of this. You know, James is out there. He's decided, having never run a half marathon before, that he's going to run the Marathon des Sables, which is 5 back-to-back marathons. Everybody's telling him he's crazy. Probably like many people that were thinking about starting up a business, you know, you were probably told you were crazy. And yet James Cracknell just sees himself as an I-10, right? You know, scale of 1 to 10, he sees himself as an I-10. Not only does he want to finish it, he wants to finish in the top 20 Brits of all time to undertake this race. And again, everyone tells him he's crazy. But there's a consistency between how he sees himself on his I side and his R side. And anyway, I won't ruin the story, but it's I'll let you watch it. But it's the greatest piece of evidence when it comes to attitude impacting your role performance that I've seen. And in Sandler, we think that attitude is broken down into these three elements. Oh, Jenna, thank you for sharing the video. It's a great piece. Really recommend it. In Sandler, we think that really attitude is broken down into the way you feel about 3 things, right? Your organization, the business you work for, yourself, and your market. And if you're managing teams of salespeople, we know that the biggest indicator for success is protecting and maintaining and developing people's attitude. So checking in with them about how they're feeling about the market right now. You know, COVID's done a job on many of us. You know, we've been working at home. Maybe we feel the market's tough. You know, if that's the case, it may be impacting our likelihood to get out there and execute the behavior we need to. When it comes to ourselves, you know, are we doing what we need to protect and develop our attitude when it comes to ourselves on that body, mind, and spirit? And finally, organization, just making sure that you feel you're scoring yourself highly on your organization side. And if you're not, you're addressing the things that you need to in order to build that organizational side up. So a couple of things when it comes to selling. right? Firstly, belief systems, right? You've got the belief systems, you and your team got the belief systems in place to maintain equal business stature, right? To maintain and protect equal business stature with your prospects. When it comes to mindset, what kind of mindset are you and the team in right now? Are you in a growth mindset or one of just maintaining and being static? Because if you're in maintaining static, it's unlikely you're getting out there and you're proactively looking to sell and engage. Comfort zones. What are you doing as leaders and managers to make sure your team are always expanding the comfort zone, getting outside and therefore expanding your comfort zone? When it comes to selling, are you looking to convince people to buy, or are you enabling them to buy by really understanding what they need? And we're an American organization, so excuse the expression, but when it comes to head trash, is there anything rattling around you or your team's heads right now about the market, the organization, or themselves that may just be limiting their beliefs and their sales behavior? Okay, last couple of minutes. I just want to think about technique. Anyone in chat name this film? This is Glengarry Glen Ross. And Glengarry Glen Ross is a very old school sales film. And typically we see that the traditional sales process goes something like this, right? Thank you, James. Glengarry Glen Ross. And we call it the buyer-seller dance, which is really where we qualify as salespeople far too little. Buyers act motivated, get us excited as salespeople. We present too early. We give away our information. We then attempt to close. The buyer avoids commitment. We then look to handle a few objections. The buyer then may disappear. And then you may be reflecting on this, and it may be happening in your pipeline. We then, as salespeople, spend an awful lot of time following up, chasing, and becoming pests. If you've ever tried to buy a car, you may have experienced this directly. And in Sandler, we advocate an alternative way of selling, which we call the Sandler submarine. Now, I'm coming out of time, so I'll share this slide with you. But let me invite you, if you'd like to talk through this further, because I am out of time, just to connect with me. Either give me a call, email me at olly.harrison@sandler.com, connect on LinkedIn, or join us for our next virtual brunch on the 29th of July, where we're talking about making sales a core strength of your business. I'm sorry for running out of time, but if you would like to talk further, do let me know. And I wish you all a really good time at the Tech Southwest Insight Lab. And folks from Tech Southwest, thanks for having me along. Cheers, guys.